Welcome to another presentation at the East Trade Winds, hosted by Bernie Fransgrote and Wayne Pratt. Our guest is Francis Strickland, the founder of VeroLead.
So we're going to be talking about clarity, performance, and profit. I have to chuckle a little bit because when I saw Bernie's put out that I was speaking and he had the rowers, and I kind of chuckled a little bit because I have a friend who is actually, she rows and she was nominated, I guess, the person to oversee and make sure people do everything in sync. And when she first started doing it was quite challenging for her. I said, how fitting would that image be for this conversation? Because in our businesses, when things aren't well structured or organized, we are not rowing in a straight line. We will be rowing in a circle. So we're going to be getting your team unstuck, whether it's me, myself and I, or you, them, and we. Some of you probably lead a team, that's many, or you may lead the team that's just me, myself, and I. So just think about it. You may think you're on your own, but the pressures may be different, but fundamentally, you are the same as a team. It is two sides of the same coin. So what's the real issue that happens? The real issue is that busy does not equal productive. Now, this truth may sometimes get confused because so much of what we learn in our everyday lives, in school or whatever, is that we are busy. And when we talk to people, we ask how things going. We say we're busy. But at the end of the day, is it really being productive? The root cause of a lack of productivity really is a lack of clarity. We already know what busy feels like. Working hard and seeing little movement, though, is not a motivation issue. If we're not being productive, we don't feel motivated. It's not necessarily a time issue either. And it isn't necessarily a talent issue. Clarity is the red thread that reduces chaos, lowers stress, and prevents burnout, whether you're leading yourself or leading others. Now, let's talk about the framework. Structure, leadership, and flow. These three pillars are what determines whether or not your business runs smoothly, or whether like you're feeling that you're pushing a boulder up the hill. You know how that feels, right? Now, I remember when I first started my business, I had no structure, no leadership, and no flow because I had no idea what I was doing. But as I became clearer of what my business was going to be and whom I was going to serve, I realized I needed to make sense of it all. Over time, I developed this framework of structure, leadership, and flow. And they apply on both sides of the coin. So let's talk about structure and leadership. Structure is the system that prevents chaos. It answers the question of how do we work so things don't fall through the cracks. Let me give you an example of structure from one of my clients. Last year, I was asked to onboard a new leader. He was an individual contributor and he had been promoted to run a remote site of this supply chain business. He had the technical skills, but he had to develop the leadership skills to make that business operate in the way the company wanted it. However, coming into that business, there were some challenges, some key structures that were necessary to help the business run smoothly. For example, making sure that they had the right resources in place and the right contracts. And in fact, one of the things that had happened is we discovered in a place that requires employment contracts that we did not have contracts in place. That was a core structure of bringing people on board and getting them clear on what they got so they could focus on what to do. That was something that had fallen through the cracks that we had to correct. Okay. The other part of leadership is standards that hold the system together. So, what does good look like and who owns what? In this business, each had an individual contributor, a senior person responsible for a financial return for their business. There were two wonderful people who lost tons of money. You could say, well, that can happen to anyone. But in having the conversation with this new leader, we said, look, we need to have some standards. What are the standards that would tell these individuals when they are missing the mark and when they should stop doing what they're doing? Those are standards that hold the system together, and the two work together. Without structure, leadership is quite difficult, and without leadership, structure doesn't work. Flow is about moving work with minimal friction. Here you see the rowers. They row in unison, right? And that motion is very smooth. If we think about how a business really works, when there's flow, things seem to fall in place. There's less emotion, less panic. It goes from one item, one action, one activity to the next. The question is, how does work move from start to finish without friction? This is where sometimes when we are leading, we get in the way. If every decision has to come up to us as the leader, that's friction, because we don't get answers, we don't get decisions unless we have the bandwidth to deal with it. And many times we don't have the bandwidth. One of my clients travels quite a bit. We waited 3 weeks for him to come back because his office manager could not move ahead with some key activities because he wasn't in the office. And so if you want to have flow, you need to put in place the structures and the standards so that people can act without having to talk to you, get your approval, every activity, every decision that needs to happen in the business. So when you have flow, you have less friction, less chance of burnout, and overall better performance. So here are 5 clarities that you'd like to build into your business. Structure. Structure has to do with the system. Then there's the clarity of leadership. That's expectations and authority. So how do you lay that out for your team? How do you lay that out for yourself? Let's talk about productivity. I have to have what success looks like. Other people are talking, saying, I ask my clients to think about their energy levels. When I talk to my clients, I said values, energy, and then their money-making activities. So in the space, even if you're on your own, you have to lead yourself. The structures you put around yourself enable you to lead yourself. It sets your expectations. Now, what's the next clarity you want to have? Flow. And that's movement of work. Flow is breaking down when your decisions stall, when your handoffs get messy, Information disappears, profits kind of like shift. They look like they're going up, but they aren't there, and you get surprised. Or the same issue keeps coming back time after time. So you can have structure, you can have leadership, but if those two aren't working well, you definitely are not going to get the flow, and it is going to show up. One of the clarities you want to have is clarity in flow. How do you hand off efficiently, et cetera, et cetera? And rhythm. Now, what is this rhythm about? Rhythm actually has to do with consistent communication cycles. When you have a team, there are some basic things you want to have in place. One is you always want to have the clarity around the why so that people have a reason to believe. You want to have a way of talking about the business in a consistent way so people understand what's expected, what success looks like, and that there's celebration when indeed their work results in the outcomes that you anticipate, that you've planned for. And that needs to be done on a regular basis, because in the absence of regular communication that is structured around a certain format, a certain content, in the absence of that, rumor runs rampant, people get confused, and key and important aspects of the work gets lost in the noise. And then you start to have mistakes, and it just ripples through the business. So the rhythm, having consistent communication cycles and content, is what makes a difference between people running in different directions and people getting it and working cohesively. It's responsibility, the clarity of who owns what. You can call this decision guides. Look at your business. What do you need to happen whether you are there or not? Now, with AI, that can enable you to do some things whether you are there or not. But if you have a team, indeed, there are going to be things that they need to do and decide on and execute whether you're there or not. So to build decision guides or responsibility guides and ensuring that all team members understand where they play in those guides is essential clarity. So whether you are me, myself, and I, or you, them, and we, clarity is what reduces chaos, protects your energy, and converts effort into profit. If you ever think that you need to just, I need to look at my structure. Do I have the right leadership activities in place? Do I have flow, or are things getting hung up? Is there friction? I'm here to help. Thank you so much.
Unlock the full potential of networking with East Trade Winds. Are you eager to connect with our esteemed guest speaker and delve deeper into the ever-expanding universe of connections? Simply scan the QR code now and embark on a journey of endless opportunities. Join us at East Trade Winds, where we gather online via Zoom every Tuesday from 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, you're welcome to connect with us. Seize the moment, register for free, and start exploring today. Fancy sharing your insights as a guest speaker? We're looking for you. Reach out to Wayne Pratt to ignite your speaking journey. Email him at wayne@motivateyou.ca or connect with Wayne on LinkedIn. Don't wait. Take action and be a part of a global community that's shaping the future of business networking.